Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the ugliest slideshow. So let me just say that the focus for this demo is the demo and to get feedback. The actual visuals for the presentation part, I just scraped together. I've essentially what I've been trying to do is trying for the demo I'm doing, I'm trying to get it so that pretty much have the whole flow so you can kind of see how it'll go. The tricky thing is the flow, up until the last minute, I'm working on connecting it. So there's probably going to be some bugs. It's going to be a little spotty, but that's not the end of the world. So for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Kylan Hurt. I go by Smilin' Kylan on a lot of my usernames. I've been building web apps for about 15 years, 14, 15 years now. Started working full time in crypto about 2017. And then I found out about intuition through Billy. He's giving a presentation at Consensus. I was working at MetaMask at the time. That was in August 2024. It's crazy to think that's been that long, but it has been quite a while. So Hive Mind is essentially, it's mostly me, but I also have a designer who I'm contracting, and also we're working on some animated videos. With regards to like actual employees, full-time people, that's just me. Right now we're working on multiple intuition products. And the browser extension is going to be the main one that we're going to focus on today. We're also going to show the Intuition Explorer. That's going to be part of the demo today. The MetaMask Snap I've done demos of before. We're not going to really be showcasing that today. That's in a good but unfinished state. We'll be talking about why in a moment. We also have a marketing website, hivemindhq.io. It's not the prettiest right now because we're not really focusing on that until we have our actual products ready. At that point, once we have them ready, then we can make the website look prettier. Although you can go to hivemindhq.io/curators if you want early access. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. So the purpose of this demo specifically, like I said, this demo is not well polished. I'm not going to say that people can't share videos of the demo, but if you do share any videos, keep in mind how it makes our community look, how it makes my products and my company look. So if you want to share it, I'd prefer if you picked a clip that doesn't look terrible, and also maybe add a little bit of context wherever you share it. So the flow that we're mostly going to be looking at today, there's a few parts. First one is the flow for a new user to the Hive Mind browser extension. Then we're also going to be looking at what it looks like when a user creates a new topic on Intuition. And also when a user decides that they want to become a curator. So let's see here. I'm going to skip down here real quick. So what we're doing, and I think most of you guys probably already understand this, but originally I thought we might be able to do more of like looking at global claims on intuition and aggregating them, looking at statistics, and trying to sort out the noise and find the signal, so to speak. And we found that really difficult. There's a lot of noise, and I'm not saying you can't get through it with all the signal, but you're talking about proprietary algorithms, and in a space like blockchain technology, if there's algorithms and users can't verify, it tends not to work well. So we've had a lot of discussions, especially on the message boards, about the idea of trust circles. So I'm not married to this triple structure, but I think that's what I'm going with. So essentially, if you want to trust someone for a topic, you're going to have, their address. And then the predicate we're using in the middle is trusted for. We feel like that ties the address to the topic. It's very concise still. And then the topic itself, we can have a debate some other time about, I'll probably make a post after this presentation. But like, I like to use simple text, atoms whenever possible. I don't like to use the IPFS ones. I know a lot of people like IPFS. But yeah, we can discuss that in detail. I don't want to get too bogged down into details just yet, though. Let's see here. Oh, another thing, this is gonna be a little bit cool, is you're gonna be looking at some of the user experience improvements that I've been working on to try to cut down, especially how many transactions we need when a user is making a claim or they're staking on a claim. If someone has to create the atom, then create the triple, there's it quickly becomes a lot of transactions. So anything we can do to streamline that, especially when we're trying to build up the network graph, is critical. So what is this? What demo not? Again, so this is not a finished product. This is me getting an idea of what you guys think about kind of this on the flow and the structure. That means that style decisions here and there, we shouldn't. That's not the focus of this demo. I have a designer, but he has not had the time to touch a lot of parts of the extension, especially these parts that I've been working on most recently. The icons, you're going to see icons are going to play a critical role in this. The icons I'm using are kind of default icons. They're not pretty, to put it simply. The web app, the Explorer web app, we'll go over that a little bit, but that's not really the focus. We're more focusing on the extension. We're also not looking for any bugs here. You don't need to point out too many bugs. There will probably be some bugs along the way. That's just the nature of it. This isn't polished. It's not ready for public release. Some of the statistics, like the amounts, might be slightly off here and there. I don't know if that will really happen, but I'm not here to sweat that sort of stuff right now. We need to make sure it works. Then we can make sure all the data is 100% accurate later. Yeah, there's also some onboarding extension flow. You'll see a little bit of that. That's okay. We don't need to focus on that. Okay, so let me think about this. If I'm starting off, I will start off making a topic. So if we have a new user and they see this, I can become a curator. Oh, by the way, can you guys all hear me all right? Everything's good?
Yeah, still clear. Yeah, still clear from my end.
Okay, cool. So let's see here. So if we go back here, so I'm starting to put out calls for curators, and we'll go over what that means in a moment. Essentially, you're kind of gonna be like an influencer in the intuition space. You are going to here, I'll show you. Um, you're essentially going to assert yourself as a curator, and people will be able to trust you for a specific topic. So that means they're adding you to their trust circle for that topic. And then I'm going to be demoing kind of what that's going to look like. So if we have a user, so this is the Hive Mind Explorer web application. Some of this is not that important right now. This trending stuff is kind of a lot of noise. But if we go and I'm 0xe45, whatever it is, and I go to my profile, if I want to say, hey, I am an expert in something, what you get to do is you get to declare it here. We have some whitelisted ones. I don't know if we're going to keep those up there, but you can choose different topics. So like if I wanted to become, so you'll see there's some visual bugs here. Let's see here. I think sports, or if I want to do tech, we'll do tech. So if I wanted to become an expert, a curator in tech, click that. And then this is going to declare your expertise. Let's see here. So it's just one transaction, it's a claim. So what happens there is we're using that same structure. Was it trusted for? So in this case, you are trusting yourself for the topic. So that we take as a convention saying that, hey, I'm asserting myself as a curator for this specific topic. We could use a different triple. It's not a huge deal. It's arbitrary at this point, kind of. Okay, so we declared ourselves as an expert for tech. I actually don't know if the topic's going to show up right now. I think there has been a delay sometimes. But let me show you what it looks like then when you are. So this is what a topic page looks like. Okay, so when you create a topic, so like this is what we did for crypto. It's only a topic because someone said that they are an expert for it. So one thing that we need that's critical is when you have users coming in, when you have curators, when you have users coming in and you want them to add people to their trust circle, what you really need is you need multiple curators that'll help make sure that there's a lot more coverage. Um, so we need more curators, and also, so we're using this screen as a bit of like a health check for the topic, especially early on. So this is early on. Curators, we're saying, hey, try to get to 5. Right now you have one. One curator for topic isn't healthy. Followers, figure 10's about a good number. If you have a lot of curators and no one's following them, then does anyone really care? Claims this week. I actually think this is incorrect, so don't mind that. This is kind of cool too. Someone's browsing the topic. Oh, do you want to be one of the first curators? Or if you want to get other people to add themselves as a curator, right, to help improve the health of your topic, then you can have this invite link, which I think will bring them to this page or something like that. That way, if you want the topic to thrive, then we need to kind of do whatever we can to drive users to um, to get more curators. All right, so let me think here what the next. Okay, so let's go ahead and pretend that we are a new user in the extension. So I'm actually going to start from scratch here. So if I'm starting, so this onboarding flow is it's not 100% what I want, but I'll give a little bit of preview just so you see the functionality. When I install this app, should do this. Sometimes it takes a while. There we go. So I'm in developer mode, so it's not as fast sometimes. I think first time around it has to parse a bunch of JSON files or something. So this is kind of the onboarding flow. I'm trying to make it as interactive as possible. So this is for any user who's adding the browser extension. Okay, see if the community thinks about anyone on x.com, the extension icon. You don't have to pin the extension icon, but if you want the best functionality, you're going to want to do that. It's cool when you do that. It can tell you did that. And you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? We got a little thing here that says, okay, here you go. So this sidebar comes out. This is the Hive Mind browser extension. Okay, cool. We'll see it in action. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, glowing badge, something. Okay, so if we look here, that's one that makes sense. If you're using Hive Mind, you should know what intuition is, and we want you becoming familiar with it. Okay, let's click on this. And this is cool. So you can see what people have made. Go ahead. Was someone saying something? That sounds okay.
No, I think that was
Okay.
just background noise.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, so you can see these little badges. You click on them, and it'll show you claims that people have made specifically about that x.com account. And also tells you, okay, weigh in. So I don't know how prominent this part is going to be. Early on, when we were trying to match people with curators, we were giving them kind of pre-approved claims to vote on. I don't know if we're going to be doing that going forward. So we'll skip to the next part. It says way on. Okay, go to trust. All right. Trust matches. Okay, so here's where it's going to show you people that you can trust if you would like to trust someone for a topic. Right now, it says you can't because you're not logged in. So let's go ahead and connect. Oop. I want a different. Let's see here. Okay. So let me pick a completely different. Okay, so if this person is okay. So I'm going to use a kind of pre-approved list I made just to make this better. So if I go to lists, because we're going to be focusing on the crypto topic specifically. So I made a little bit of a list where it's like some relevant accounts Let's see here. I'll make it bigger. Oh, I don't want this yet. To a different count. We'll do yes. All right. So if this person is browsing around here, okay, I'll make this bigger. So if you're browsing, you can see that there are little badges here. So this says, if I click this, it tells me, I'll get out of this stuff, a bunch of onboarding stuff. Uh, So if I click on that, it'll bring up CoinDesk. You can see the claims that other people have made about it. You can also make claims yourself, trustworthy builder. Right now, we've been kind of using AI to come up with like, okay, well, what are the best claims to make for a specific type of atom? Like, is it related to a topic? So that's a lot of the inference that we kind of have to do either through our own logic in our app or through actually using AI. Let's see here. So we got CoinDesk. Another thing too is if I want to make claims. In fact, let me make this more compelling for you. So this is, I'm going to give myself some trust tokens. So that should go now. So now we have a balance. Oh, so this is kind of cool. So let's say this user wants to start making claims. They can, and these are kind of like quick action icons. So if I click, some of these have meanings. Okay, so these icons are not the prettiest. These are the default ones I was talking about. So if we go in this direction, which I think we will, we'll be coming up with probably a lot of our own icons that'll be a little bit easier to figure out what they mean. So you can also imagine if this person happened to be a curator, I can click this repeatedly, and you can't read there, but it says 6 trusts, and then every time I click one, it goes up. If I go for the same claim, then it just adds more on. And I also have it so it sets like a default. Let's see here. Not set. We'll prompt on first. Okay, cool. Yeah. So if I keep going, say, oh, let's say I want to say that they're alpha provider, coin market cap, same thing, alpha provider, coin telegraph. I'll say that they're trustworthy. So now I have 4 claims in here. So I've queued my claims. So now what it's doing here, it's preparing them. So it's saying, hey, do these atoms even exist? Do the predicate atoms exist? Do the subject atoms exist? That way, when we actually do submit 4 claims, it's just depositing on 4 different claims. So if we do this, there we go. I'm supposed to have it ask me how much I want to stake per claim, but that's okay. That's not that critical. But you'll notice, did you see what just happened? Now these gold icons show up. Okay. So yeah, let me see if there's any. So the gold icons mean that we have added a claim of our own. So that's great. And then I'll go ahead and clear this out for a second. So the other thing is we haven't trusted anyone yet. The problem is if you make your own claims, you don't care that much about your own claims. You already know what you think of OKX. You already know what you think of CoinGecko and Cointelegraph. I mean, this is kind of cool. You rate it as trustworthy, cool. So if I go here, so what it does here is it looks for curators. We're still working on the process for signaling or surfacing the best curators for someone. That's an area that there's going to be a lot of work on. I think we have a lot of ideas that work really well. Early on, it's trickier. So there's worst comes to worst. If we need to, we can have kind of starter packs or something. But once you get a few curators, which is why we push for it to have multiple curators, is then if 2 people say they're curators for the same topic, then if they are making a bunch of claims, the chances are anything that they make duplicate claims on, where they have overlap, that those atoms are probably going to be more related to the specific topic. This does beg the question of, okay, can a curator be a what's the a curator and an expert for multiple topics? I haven't gone quite that far. Um, but we'll get there when we get there. I don't see that being too much of an issue. And it does make sense because some people will be experts of multiple topics, and sometimes those topics will be related, right? One might be crypto, another might be secure smart contract security, for example. So I'm gonna try something here and hopefully this works. So if I were to click Smiling Kylan, so you'll notice the feed doesn't have too much under the avatars. There's one gold badge that we did ourselves, but generally there's not a ton. So now if I were to add Smiling Kylan, who's a curator for crypto, so you can see crypto, I nominated myself uh, at some point. I don't know if I'll consider myself an actual curator for it, but for the point of this demo. So what we're doing is we've trusted smilingkylan.eth to our trust circle for crypto. So I've added him. And then now supposed to do a live update in here, but I don't know. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a while to update. Yeah, looks like maybe it's a bug. Oh, no, there you go. See, it takes a little while. So now you see, okay, these green icons, like it's trustworthy, I think is the one here. Yeah. And you see the avatars for the people from your trust circle who specifically have endorsed that claim. So I think that is the main part of my demo. I guess I'll go ahead and stop here and just, what are your guys' thoughts? Anyone got feedback?
I mean, I'll just
I
say
don't know if I
from my own
still
point of view,
hear.
I think it's really cool. I like how you I like how you've integrated it into the Twitter feed to be just like right there under the PFP. It makes a lot of sense. It seems very easy, like very intuitive, very easy for me to use, click through, make claims. I think that's one of the biggest things from a user point of view is like just making things as easy as possible is huge. And you've done great with that here from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and one thing I'll show you real quick, this is one of the things I really like about this. If I close that sidebar, because most people don't browse with a browser extension sidebar open like that. But so even if I close the browser extension, if I start scrolling down, I will still see these icons. So even if you install it and add some people to your trust circle and forget and never open it, you're still gonna see the insights from intuition. Um, and as a side note, it's a challenge sometimes to get these elements, these components and icons into this little area. Actually, this area is okay, but in general, building on top of other websites can be a challenge. I do think this is a pattern that we can do on other social media, not so just social media, on other websites. So I've thought, maybe YouTube would be a place we could do something like that, or Farcaster or Warpcast, or we can kind of, I'm not going to say trivially, but we can pretty quickly add other websites that we would like to support. So yeah. I see a good question. Have I thought about doing that for the entire web? So originally what I was doing was if I were to go just to like google.com, then if we had any insights, because in the background, the extension can know what website you're on if you give it permission to. We could let users make claims about the specific website itself, right? Then you could cover every website as a website. But then also if we go to I'm not even gonna go to YouTube. If I go to YouTube and, here, we'll do it this way. If we go to YouTube, let's see here, click on something. Every social media platform kinda has, some places where you could do it. Uh, so maybe we would do it right in here. Um, yeah, so anyways, you can find a spot pretty much for any website. This does beg the question, like, am I gonna do that myself? Would I hire people, a bunch of people, or would we make it open source or something? I'm kinda flexible on that. But yeah, this is something where this doesn't need to just be X.com. You can do this on pretty much any website, and ideally, we would want it on every website. Um, yeah. Now, what other questions we got?
Looks like Luda's typing something out. Maybe he's got a
Let
question or some
me
feedback or any other
stop
feedback from
sharing for a
anybody.
sec. Yeah, let me make sure I haven't missed any functionality for the demo.
I guess question from my end on like how you're querying for this stuff because it might help inform some of the API work. Like, you're probably querying every tweet one by one, right? And then filtering by positions.
Mm. So I don't do tweet by tweet. We scrape. The browser extension does have access to this web page, so it
So
will
it
look
will look
through.
through.
Check, check. Sorry, I heard an echo. So it will go through each of these. It'll scrape each batch. It's usually like 6 or 8 of them at a time, and it'll look at the usernames. Okay, so you're right. This is an important part. So it will look at the usernames, but the problem with the usernames is that they are mutable. So we have to use immutable IDs on X.com. Yes, the tricky thing there is in order to map them, user IDs to usernames, you do need access to their API. So that is friction, especially if other people want to support these triples and these types of claims. I think if this turns into something that is compelling and a lot of people use, I think most web apps and explorers would be willing to support the X username to ID functionality. I think it would be worth it. You can cache a lot of it. Um, Trying to think what else. Yeah, yeah. So it'll go through those atoms, and yeah, I think here. Yeah, go through atoms. Looks for if there are any claims, and then specifically if there are any claims from anyone in any of the user's trust circles.
Nice. That's you have more available than I thought. So it's basically like you're kind of doing intuition queries and then a Twitter API behind the scenes, just so you can map whatever's in the DOM to an actual user.
Right. Yeah. I've thought
Okay.
about sharing the mapping of usernames to user IDs. X is somewhat strict about what you can and can't do. They don't want us doing that. So if someone wants that data, they have to query it themselves, which is somewhat unfortunate. Yeah. So if how do I say this? The actual atom label is literally in the format of like X colon 1 2 3 4 5 6 whatever. And that from a usability standpoint is not the best, right? So we do need to try our best to resolve those.
We gotta put all those links in Intuition so everyone can use it and make
You
it
can.
cheaper for all
Yeah,
of
I
us.
mean, yeah. I'm trying to think here. So you could do it automatically, and then that just means when it updates. Let me think about when someone changes their username, then I would have to update the claim. But that's not that bad. And the thing is, I know some of you might be thinking, "Oh God, there's a billion people on Twitter," and yeah, there are. But realistically, like it's a what do they call it? Pareto coefficient. So it's gonna be like 1,000 accounts that are probably making up 99.9% of the activity and following and engagement on X. So that has been very, very useful. So we use that to our advantage.
But yeah, I'm less worried about like the amount of accounts because those IDs are immutable, right? So then, but people can change like the cosmetic username.
The username, yeah. And the cosmetic username is what you usually want to show in like an actual UI that's public facing. Because X12345 6 doesn't mean anything, right? It's unless you've memorized, which no one has. So
James, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, the thing that really caught my eye and that I like that we need to think deeper about is like using these triples as search algorithms. I was mentioning we're obviously working on something and working on sorting and ranking. But I think having something public that really, in addition to this like predicates that we've published, is also how our search algorithms are built on triples. I feel like that's the next progression of like, these layers that we build. It's like, all right, these top 100 predicates, and then okay, it's these like 10 triples that you can build like search algorithms on. And I think as a community, it makes a lot of sense. Just come to consensus and, publish what triples you're using. We could probably even use those the same as we kind of surface different perspectives and easily finding those for people. So just wanted to point out, I really like that idea of using triples in that way to start getting those search algorithms kind of, published and documented.
what do you mean
What do you
when you
mean
say
when you
search
say search
algorithms?
algorithms?
So you mentioned you were doing search like, hey, this person's trustworthy, therefore you should, instead of finding returning everyone's opinion on this, it's like this person I trust, therefore I'm going to surface this perspective sooner before others, right? So it's like affecting how your interface is behaving. We could adopt that same approach where if those triples are available, we surface that data to users ahead of time. So just influencing how these interfaces kind of respond.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
early
so
on,
early on,
I'm
I'm hearing
hearing
echo.
Here, I'm
thank you. Yeah, so early on, again, like I said, I was thinking probably that global claims would have a little bit better signal to noise ratio, and maybe it would, okay? Um, but I know what threw me off is there was a contest that Intuition was holding, and the number of claims was something absurd, like 120,000 or 12,000. And it becomes very clear that someone's gaming the system. So it's like the second you make a scoreboard, then that statistic is no longer reliable because now it will be gamed, especially when there's staking and money and contests involved. So yeah, we're leaning really heavily into the trust circle functionality. I think that is the way to go. I think if you look at your life, you trust people for different things, right? The guy that you trust to fix your computer, you might not care for their relationship advice, or their stock picks, right? Um, so there's a cold start issue though, because when the users join, there's not many claims. There's no trust circle, right? So you do have to show them something. We show them global claims. That's enough. But we need to very heavily push them towards adding people to their trust circle. And again, once they add people, you want curators that have large breadth, right? They've made a lot of comments or claims about a lot of topics, or excuse me, a lot of atoms in that topic, because really you want the user's feed to be littered with insights. So yeah. Trying to think. Yeah. Oh, I should mention this is important. So a big question. You'll notice a lot of what I've done here. You're making decisions and you're staking. You're making claims. I haven't added a lot of functionality for. Well, I'm not encouraging the user to put heavier or lighter claims based on conviction yet. I don't know if you guys are doing that a lot yet, but so it's almost like the quote unquote price discovery almost for trust tokens in my app has not occurred yet. So a big question, and actually I would love feedback from you guys on this one. Um, at what point should I be pushing users more like, hey, stake more for more conviction, right? So because you have the curators wait for their claim, you also have the users wait on how much they trust a person in their trust circle. I guess, my knee-jerk reaction is, okay, that must mean that eventually, once we get this going, we'll probably multiply, their trust for the person times the weight of that trusted person's claim to kind of come up with, I don't know, some sort of value. Maybe that's how we'll order, I would think. That's a big part of it. When you can only show a few icons in the feed, for example, um, obviously the ones that have the most weight should probably be towards the top. So right now there's not much of a push for users to stake a lot, um, because I'm not using the stake weight that much, if that makes sense. That's a process that will be happening, I think, once we're more confident of which way it's heading. But what are your guys' thoughts? Is this a point where we should start? How would we be using the weights? Would we use the way that I mentioned it, or what other ideas do you guys have? I think there's a good question for Billy too, if he's listening.
I think you could do it progressively. Like I would the first way I would introduce it would be using the weights as a way for people to kind of stack rank people against each other. So it's like I want to trust Kylan more than this other person. I want to trust both of them, but I want to trust Kylan more. And the way that I would stack rank them is by staking like a little bit more. So I think that's like very small incremental step in the direction, and then getting
How do you
people to.
expect that to be? What effect do you expect that to have on the user experience? So if I stake more on you over some random person, but you're both in my trust circle, for example, what effect would do you think that should have?
It depends on the context in which you want to consume it, which like brings me to it. Like I really think that locking down the ontology is very important so that these are like composable across applications. But I would think that, you know, um the I can think of it in your I'll think more about it in your context, but like what immediately comes to mind for me is, it's something showing up in a feed, or if I need like it's like okay, if someone's like higher in my trust circle, maybe I see more of their things than someone who's lower in that trust circle. Or if you want to, render, let's say you've got like 3 slots for profile pictures on the front end where it's like, okay, which people from my trust circle trust this thing?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I want to see the picture of the guy who's like top, like the top
Yeah.
person, like there. So just things like that, where it's like, if you got to make a decision of like what to surface to the user, I think the stack ranking of how much you trust someone in a specific context, like that's when it starts coming into play.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot, yeah, but I guess when you say it like that, there's a lot of ways you can do it. Like, it's just this. There's always been this tricky thing in the back of my mind because whenever we try to make some sort of ranking, when it's a public facing ranking, that's when it seems like that's kind of when it gets screwed up, right? If we want to say, oh, which curator has the most stake, some dude's gonna go make another account, put 100,000 trust on himself, and say, look at me, I'm the top curator. But so maybe it is more just in the personalized contexts when it would actually make the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think like yes, but also I think I'm a big fan of kind of the cheesy and beauty contest problem, and like the thought that if there is economic weight behind it and you kind of surface the ability for people to speculate on something, and the game is, you know, like there's like I want to take an economic bet on who I think everyone else is the most trustworthy person in this context, rather than who I personally think. And through that dynamic, you actually surface better signal, where it's like it doesn't matter who I trust, it matters who I think everyone else trusts. And that ultimately like leads to better results than people subjectively choosing who they personally trust. So it's hard to get to that point because, you know, like, God, still a small ecosystem. People are going to game whatever you have, and like it kind of like requires, you know, I think the higher the volume, the more people participating, the more that kind of plays out. So I don't know how it plays out in a super small concentrated setting like we have, but the counterpoint to that is also, I think, the people interacting with things right now, like, hopefully have those things best interest in mind, so maybe it gets gamed less than
Yeah.
otherwise in a like super adversarial larger environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about if if the statistics, let's say, oh, who has the most followers as a curator, um, I think as long as like it's just tricky because sometimes you want to put up, oh, who has the most followers, but yeah, people will game it. But I guess there are sometimes sometimes
What?
it's not all noise.
Yeah, one thing to think about is we're working. It's not going to be ready soon, but soon is relative. But like, we're working on allowing people to claim Atom wallets through the Atom Warden. Like, very rudimentary versions of that already exist, but like we're building out more advanced kind of claiming slash recovery functionality. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because, okay, imagine like the goal is going to be adoption, it's going to be growth, it's going to be distribution. So it's like, okay, how do you get kind of like relevant people interacting with what you've built? And one way is through, I think, through like trust circles. So imagine uh lots of people have lots of trust volume being staked on the fact that this person is trustworthy. So imagine it's Vitalik, and everyone's claiming that Vitalik is really reputable in the context of Web3. Like the Atom wallet representing Vitalik is going to be accumulating fees. And maybe Vitalik doesn't care so much about money, so maybe it's some other guy. But like, let's say Vitalik cares about money, then and Vitalik, the Atom wallet representing Vitalik, has accumulated a ton in fees through people saying that he's trustworthy in the context of Ethereum. Um, Now you could reach out to him and be like, hey, like, why don't you onboard to this app? Because, you know, people are claiming stuff about you, and if you come in and claim your thing, then you claim the Atom wallet, then you claim all this money and all the fees that are being generated through people making claims about you.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think here. So it would be the Atom for example, his ENS name or his crypto address, right?
Yeah, but we're also working on like uh it Kames, are you there? Do you know like which methods we're introducing for Atom wallet recovery at the beginning? I know we're doing like D and
Yeah, so we're starting out with DNS, so you'll be able to do that and add like a text record to your domain and have claim ownership over an Atom wallet that points to that same URL. This one will be a little bit longer, but we're working out ways to log in with OAuth, so to prove that you either own like a Twitter account or you own a Spotify song. we're gonna have this off-chain service that authenticates, and then we'll give users basically a signed message that then allows them to claim a specific wallet. But that backend will be flexible. It doesn't matter like what you verify. We just always give out the same signature, so new things can be added over time. So if you guys, as a community, you want to fork this, or I don't know, it's a little different because we're the owners of the Atom wallet, but we can figure out a way to maybe collaborate and kind of scale this out.
So real quick, one there, thank you. So my one concern, my immediate thought when I think of people claiming for their Atom is this is a potential PR issue, right? If someone makes a controversial, if they're a controversial figure that everyone talks about, does that automatically mean they should make money off of it, right? If I'm, some, I don't know, bad person, bad media influencer, or a bad politician, some evildoer out there who's infamous, and everyone's talking about me, then should I be able to make money, right? Because the news headlines are gonna say intuition blockchain is profitable for bad people. That's what it's gonna say. Do we have a mitigation against that?
I mean, I don't think there's no way around it in something like this. And I mean, if you look at life generally, it's like, let's take Twitter as a less extreme example. It's like, okay, Twitter's not looking at how bad you are when they pay out their monthly fees. It's just like how many impressions did you get? Like how many eyeballs saw your thing? And they say, no press is bad press. It's like, how are you gonna who determines who's good or bad, or like that the community hates it? It's like, if you do that, you enter this world of censorship. So I think it's just relevancy. So if you're relevant enough to the point where people are like claiming you're a bad person, at least you're relevant, and that's interest.
Yeah.
It's interesting enough to these people to put money on it. Like that's valuable to the system. So I don't think we
Yeah.
I don't think we observe that as like
I think now I think about this, so there's definitely some mitigations. Like, I think if people know that engagement is profitable, then I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing a convention where people kind of try to keep their staking amounts on bad atoms lower. Of course, that means that someone
Yeah,
can
that's
come and
true.
influence it
Yeah.
more easily.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, yeah, I guess you're right. X does pay money on engagement. As long as our network is a net positive, then we can make the argument that whatever good atom amount, excuse me, whatever good atom revenue someone gets, should outweigh the negative. So I guess there's an argument there as well. All right, let's see. All right, this one, Luda says, Kyle, when you talk about curator overlap, two curators attesting on the same atom, I was thinking that overlap could actually show right there in the queuing step, like a little trust score badge on each claim before the user submits, powered by the trust. So instead of just seeing an atom, you see, okay. So you'll see, if you make a claim, see something like, your buddy also made a claim. Yeah, that's good. It'll tell you kind of who you agree with, who you don't agree with. And generally, we also want, once users start making their own claims, then we can start matching them with curators who think a lot like them. The way that I see it is, if you pick the right trust circle, so theoretically, let's say I make a bunch of claims about crypto and I'm not a curator. And then I see a curator who let's say I've made 1,000 claims on crypto. And then my Hive Mind says, oh, look at this curator, OX Billy. You and Billy agree on all these overlapping claims 1,000 out of 1,000 times. It's very powerful for me at that point to add Billy to my trust circle, because as long as I have a bunch of people who agree with me, have a lot of affinity with my opinions, then essentially your trust circle kind of becomes a kind of almost precognition. instead of you having to figure out what an X account is or who they are, if they're trustworthy, essentially your trust circle is you, right? It's a very close model of your opinions. So I think that's really powerful. I think it's that would provide a lot of information to you very quickly. So I do think the trust circle functionality that intuition is going for in general, it seems like people are heading in that direction. I think it's excellent. One thing, another thing I should add is that I have a little concern when I'm doing the curators, when I'm offering curators. I was thinking of doing a starter pack, but that means that Hive Mind, when we encourage people to make their trust circle, you actually don't want one DApp being too influential on the trust circle. So you also want other dApps promoting curators for the same or similar topics, so that at the end of the day, a user's trust circle is kind of an aggregate of who they trust on topics from within different contexts. Like within Hive Mind, right, which is probably going to start off mostly talking about Twitter accounts, or if maybe they're on another DApp that works on agent ranking, right? So, and of course, obviously, there's crossover. You trust someone for their opinions on agent ranking, then or into ranked, then if you come to Hive Mind, you'll have those trust circles, which is good. I think you want larger trust circles because as long as you actually do trust those people, you'll have a lot larger coverage. And obviously, larger coverage also means the curator themselves. In fact, let me show you one thing. I got one more thing to show, I guess. Entire screen. So if I actually go here and I am Smiling Kylan, and this is not done, the Explorer stuff in general is just a bit messy. There's just a lot of stuff. It's not really super organized. Haven't really had my designer work on that too much yet. So if I go to my profile, it doesn't show all of it. Yeah, let me see here. So it does show you kind of your impact. Okay, I have crypto here. I have 6 followers. Let me see if I can get this. I have too many wallets, so I don't remember which one. Try this one, I guess. View my profile. Anyway, we do have some widgets that kind of tell you, hey, you're a curator for this topic. Do you want to, like, you need more claims essentially. Like you're not quite there yet. All right, well, it's not on here, but I thought it was. But yeah, so that's the good thing is I was worried that Hive Mind would become too, it would centralize people's trust circles too much. But as long as other dApps are also pushing trust circles, again, with the same triples and conventions, then this should have a decentralizing effect, which is exactly what we want. Now let's see here. Okay, that could. Okay, you got any other major questions here?
Yeah, I think like in terms of like trust circle semantics, can you pull up again what you're using?
Yeah. Let's do that. This is a great time to do that. So I'm just using this address trusted for topic. Yes, you could do, what do you call it? Compound or a triple within a triple, but I was trying to keep it simple for now. So I'm hoping this sort of structure makes sense.
Is there, I know, like, does anyone, I'm just curious if anyone else has like perspectives here. Also, well, one, I'm curious, like, what does the atom trusted for look like? Is it just the string trusted for, or is it something else? I guess let's pause there.
Yeah, so I pretty much always try to do a quote unquote text object when I can. I don't like doing the IPFS ones if I don't have to. So if you literally do just trusted for the just the basic string, that's the atom that I'm using. As far as I'm concerned, I try to go for the simplest atoms when it makes sense. I don't know if that's a good strategy overall, but I think so far it has been.
Cadence, how does that compare to like the predicate registry standards that were like, I don't know if are they published slash if they are, or if even if not, like, is this the convention we want folks to follow? Is this okay? Can we like make, if people start using just like the text object versions, can we make them compatible? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I mean, ideally, we kind of move towards what we published. It is published, it's available, and I can explain the reasons why. Like, so we kind of work through, what are the pros and cons of strings versus an object. And if we store an object, what we are landing on is the schema.org defined term. And then what that allows backend systems to do who are indexing that is to know that this string is a special predicate, that it has some enshrined values, that like you should treat it this way, you can index it better. If it's just a string, it's kind of like hard to pick up like, oh, this is a special predicate, unless you already know it ahead of time and you know that constant. But say there's like 50 plus predicates and they're all using this defined term part, that means anybody who's indexing our backend knows that like this predicate does something. It's used somewhere to change a front end, change a back end, search, something like that. And so obviously we do have strings now that are kind of legacy. There's the has tag, it's the one that you're using. And in small cases, we can kind of have legacy support. But ideally, we all move towards this, object. And to your point about IPFS, it doesn't necessarily have to be on IPFS. We can support strings, obviously, just in like JSON format on the Atom data. That obviously gives you a different Atom ID, so we're gonna have to pick one or the other, kind of long term. But that's the thinking of why move towards this object as opposed to just a raw string.
Yeah. Maybe. Thank you. Um, yeah. So with I guess if you're not doing it to IPFS, then that does change it. I guess my question immediately would just be, let's say I insert a JSON string into the data field or URI, whatever you want to call it, and then what? I'm just trying to think, how quickly does that get indexed? Does that get indexed any slower or faster than a regular simple text? My issue with the IPFS one specifically is that they kind of have to propagate. And from a user experience perspective, if I need prompt responsiveness, someone makes a claim or adds someone to their trust circle, whatever, I want to like immediately start taking effect. It has to go to the blockchain. That's fine. But if we have to start going to IPFS and we don't know how big the file is, then all of a sudden that it just gets way too slow. But so I guess my question would be, if you're doing the JSON stringified version, is that a lot faster?
It should be the same speed as a regular string, right? Because you're just parsing it. You don't have to do any lookup. You basically just have one other function, which is like turn this string into a JSON object and check it. You're talking like milliseconds there. But obviously there's like a character limit of 1,000 right now. We can bump that on the smart contracts. So this works really well with predicate objects where they're most likely going to be below, 1,000 characters. It starts to not work if the atom is very big. Say like we ran across this problem with Twitter. So like then you actually have to post it to IPFS and then use that URI. But for predicates, I feel like you probably don't need IPFS in most of those. I can run the math and see if they're under our character limit. But most of the time if you just use a string, you get the benefits of not having to have that long lag of then resolving with IPFS. And some gateways, they take 40 or 50 seconds. It can be an extremely long wait to get that file resolved sometimes.
Can you tell me more about this registry? More about this registry, because I don't know much about it. I haven't heard much about it. Who's in charge of it? How far along is it? Where are you guys discussing it? Because it would be nice if we have kind of a very basic, hey, these are kind of the atoms that most dApp developers think that we should use. I don't know if we'd use Intuition itself for that. I think that's an interesting question, or if this is just so how is this conversation being had? And is there a registry and where was it?
Yeah, so we just kind of published stuff last week. There is an intuition data structures folder that has like basically the just markdown explanation of what's going on. We did codify that last week. We haven't published those packages, but we're getting ready to do that like this week. And so what you'll be able to do is import intuition slash predicates, and then it has like these top 100 that we're recommending. And you can easily import them, get the ID, get the original data, and in the future we're even going to do multilingual support. So we start to have these packages that you can just import and kind of see what these predicates will be used for. But right now it's in the link that Zep put in the chat. But hopefully in the next week or two we will actually have npm packages that you can import and easily use these in your app.
Also, Zed or Seto show off the ontology app.
I can showcase that quickly. But yeah, that's an initiative like to actually do that. To just explain, Caroline, this webpage ontology.intuitionbox is like you leveraging intuition to have like a registry of the used predicate for different use case. So right now, like it's just like a proof of concept, like highlighting like Web 2 registry. But yeah, next step would be like to bring it like connected to intuition, because obviously like most of the job like need to comes like from the team, and the job from James putting like the list of predicates like is needed, but then like this need to evolve also, because like we can't like cover that from like the one single standard to cover all use cases. Something need to evolve and be flexible for every project to say what they want to recommend.
Yeah, let me mention real quick. So this actually reminds me, I actually think it makes sense for us to create an intuition topic itself. And because it's crypto itself is a very broad topic. We actually need one, I think, for intuition, where so it would be interesting, like you could use trusted circles where the topic is intuition for, hey, wait, what's the right atoms to use, or what, whatever opinions you want. Even like the smart contract. If you guys have seen the MetaMask Snap, it would be good for us to start tagging the smart contracts that we're using, for example. But that means that we would probably want to use a trusted circle for it. So yeah, that means we'll have to create an intuition topic, which would be kind of cool because we could probably almost all be curators of that one, right? So that actually might be a lot of fun to create that early on. Um, Start eating our dog food, as they say. Okay, cool. Well, that's it for me. I posted a link in the chat. If you go to hivemindhq.io. Oh, we're on my, let's see here. Hivemindhq.io, you can get more info. It doesn't look very pretty. But if you go to the curators section, if you want early access, I know a bunch of you guys have signed up. As you can tell, I'm still ironing out the kind of the final details. So I do want to get you guys in there if we can start using it soon. And those early access people, yeah, they would have access to it, and it'll still have bugs. It'll be uglier. But I think we want to get the network graph kind of going and get early curators in there, populate the network graph so that once we eventually do a larger launch, once we get to that point, then we'll already have a bunch of the network graph populated. Yeah. All right. that's it for me for the demo. If you have more questions, let me know. I am going to be posting in the Atlas discourse message board thing. Once we have this video, I'll probably put a link to it there, maybe even embed it. And I think I'll probably mention a bunch of the topics we had here and some of the outstanding questions so that we can continue the conversation. Yeah, thanks for coming out. That demo went more smooth than I was expecting, which is nice. And thanks for tolerating the different time zone. I know it's very late for a bunch of you guys. It's just I'm in Japan and it's a terrible time zone. So thank you for tolerating that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard being a worldwide community, right? It's always hard to get everyone together. So huge shout out to everyone who did come, especially if it's late or early, no matter where you are. Kylan, there was one more thing that I wanted to surface that Luda had said early on in the chat, where he said, when you talked about curator overlap, two curators attesting on the same atom, he was thinking that overlap could actually show up right there in the queuing system. So, like a little trust score badge on each claim before the user submits, powered by the trust MCP. So, instead of just seeing the atom, you see how strongly your trust circle has already backed it. And does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And so one thing we've been thinking about, if I go real quick, we definitely want the user's opinion on whatever topics, because that's actually how we help make sure that they actually agree with the curators that they have. So if I go in here, this weigh in is another way that we can do it, where we can say, hey, we can start presenting claims here that a bunch of their trust circle people for a specific topic have made claims on. That signals to us that that claim is related to that topic. And then this user follows people for that topic. So we can say, hey, do you agree or disagree with it? Um, I guess that's not the same thing as what he was saying, though. Yeah, there's also social proof when you're making claims. Yeah, you could have, okay, let's see here. Say I make a claim. So it could be like, oh, these people in your trust circle also agree. I just don't know if that's like, sometimes I wonder how important it is. I haven't gotten the answer to how important it is to know a user's opinion on a claim once their trust circle has already made that claim. I mean, it's good to know if they disagree, but if they agree, how does that doesn't change much in their feed. Like, yeah, it'll show the trust avatars of their trusted circle people. Um, then that's probably enough. Um, like you need to be reminded think that you think an account is funny or entertaining. You might already know that. So to me, there's a question of like, how useful is it to to pile onto claims that other people already, your trust circle already. Well, actually, I take it back. I take it back because once you have the profit motive with the bonding curves, then you could have a feed that just says, "Hey, look at your trust circle said this about this, person today," and that could be if you think that the more people are going to stake because this curator is ahead of the curve, then I guess you would want to stay because it could be profitable. Yeah, there's so much mechanics with this stuff. I love it. It's very rich, lots of data that we can work with. But it does make predicting it pretty much impossible. But it does make it exciting, right?
Yeah, definitely
Hopefully
makes it
that's
exciting.
kind of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. Luda, hopefully that's a good follow-up. If not, of course, you guys can always chat more. I know it's probably more async than it is on a sync call together, but ways
Yeah.
to keep in touch. This is actually really cool. Thank you, Kylan, for taking the time to demo Hive Mind to us. It's actually something that myself and Billy had just chatted about briefly last week about wanting to start seeing some demos from everybody. So I'd love for us to continue these calls, and maybe we can schedule for like each person to give a good demo of what you're building. every Monday, and we can kind of focus on one product, and then also leave some time there for blockers or for um convention chatting. You know, if anyone else wanted to give a demo today, I'm still here. I'm sure some more people would be here, but I also know everyone, if you want a break, I get that too. So just kind of leave the floor open, or if you had anything that you specifically wanted to chat about, anything you wanted to bring up, questions that you have, anything you're concerned about, and I'd love to open the floor to Zet or Salo if they have any thoughts from the Builders Guild side of things.
No, thanks for demo. I think like from my side, like I really like the way you are approaching it, going with the trust circle, and maybe like in the first time, like not trying to compute like a score ranking, it's just like filtering by who you trust. And I feel like that's really how you should start. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nothing to add. But I second his words.
Yeah, hey man, it would be great if we could just get a global trust score, and you should look at a glance, can I trust this person or not? But that's unfortunately not the way the world really works, right? I saw a funny comment. It was, I don't remember the saying, but it was like as soon as what is it? As soon as a signal starts to get measured, like it starts to get manipulated. It was something like once the number becomes a metric, then it's no longer reliable. Essentially, yeah. It's a Schrodinger's cat sort of thing or something. I don't know.
I agree with that, and I also disagree. I think like like a global score, universal one, is a wrong way because for the reason you mentioned. But also I think like having like the trust circle as a basis, we can do awesome things because like with your experience, like someone entering your application will be limited to what is trust score is. But then like if it doesn't have like a trust circle, then like maybe like just following one or two people from intuition who already have like their own trust circle. That's where you can like derive recommendation from not people you trust directly, but indirectly. And then if you want to scale that, instead of having like just recommendation as you have, you can like decline a trust score on like indirect relationship with someone. That's what Luda is working on with his MCP and trust score computation. So I feel like there is a way to there is a lot of way to expand that after.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. So my initial thoughts too are so I thought about adding people your trust circle trust, right? So one extra skip. Obviously the queries can get a lot more difficult. And there was a little I was a little bit worried too. Okay, what if someone just adds a bunch of garbage trust circle people? But the truth is, if curators start to act up, people can just unfollow them, and that will mean that they'll lose influence. I think the curator position will probably be somewhat lucrative, so I don't think people will want to screw that up. So I think making sure the users know if any curator's doing something that makes the user experience worse, like making low quality claims or false claims or trusting people in their own trust circle that aren't that aren't good essentially. Um, Making sure that users know which curators are kind of quote unquote bad for their feed and letting them remove them. So that's another thing. So if you start if if you as a user have a curator where you and that curator start disagreeing a lot, then we'll probably notify the user. I don't know exactly what that signals, but that's something we'll find out as we actually start using it more. So yeah, but the whole the extra skip with the calculations, that's why I'm going for I want the user to have a lot of their own curators rather than having to go the extra hop. That's how I decided to tackle it, and that's just for me personally. That's it. I think it works better for me. Yeah.
Highland, there was one other question that was in the chat, just shortly after you got started from Passive Records or Sam from the Sophia team. He said, given the trust circle feature, would you describe your app Hive Mind as a social app?
Yeah. So around the time when I don't know if you guys remember, but for my Hive Mind Discord server, I was playing around with this bot, and I realized so that you could ask the bot to give you like that's kind of a summary of the claims on an account, and so I put that up there, and I quickly noticed that first of all, the things that you guys, I'm going to say you guys, not you guys specifically, but generally, what people were looking up were themselves. They're either looking up, oh, what's their reputation? What's my reputation, right? That's the most interesting thing. Then also looking up kind of their friends. And I think at that point, I started to realize that there is a lot more of a social aspect to intuition. And I actually think that's probably the best way to present intuition to people because social media is just way more engaging. If I look at the apps and the websites I spend the most time on during the course of the day, it's gonna be YouTube, Twitter, and Reddit. So really that's kind of what people gravitate towards. And if you're making claims about stuff that people either don't care that much about, or it's not that compelling, or it's not what's in front of them, it's not the topics that are in front of them during the course of the day, then they might not have much of a reason to go to your app. So that's why I've been using the browser extension is I say, hey, you're already in Twitter. Like just have this browser extension installed. It'll be somewhat passive. And people are always on social media. So that's definitely the area that I decided to target. Um, Part of that's just because that's just what's compelling to users. It's a cynical sort of thing to do. And in fact, whatever social parts I can add, I will tend to lean heavily into adding them. A lot of the patterns we're using, like, oh, this person also likes this, or this, matching people through kind of inference and connecting the dots. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing, you see similar stuff in like Facebook, right? Instead of curators, they're friends, right? We can recommend a curator of a curator or a trusted person of a trusted person. That's the same way Facebook says, hey, you may also know this person because they're friends with three of your other friends, right? So I'm borrowing as much patterns from that as I can because social media clearly is effective. So I'm not trying to fight that. Yeah. The more social the app is, probably the more engagement we'll have.
Agreed with you there on just about every front. Being social, making things fun, making things connect to others. Yeah, very huge. What did Vital say? There really isn't a global trust score. The trust score should be based on the end user settings. This is where staking and waiting really shines, in my opinion. How much you trust someone or something changes dramatically when you change one or two variables. Yeah.
While we're on the oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much of a trust score. It'd be nice. We would have had the Holy Grail, but that's it. That was one of the biggest questions people would say, though. It would immediately be, oh, can't just anyone just make an account, or can that? Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can kind of game things. The truth is, behind the scenes, the dApps, a lot of our projects are probably going to do very heavy calculations behind the scenes and not let everyone know that we're doing that because we'll be able to find a lot of insights, I think. When you tell the users, hey, don't worry about the global scores, just focus on your trust circle, I think organically you'll get some strong signals if you crunch the numbers that way. But the second you start telling them that you care about the global numbers, then they start manipulating them. So it's kind of this, hey, don't worry about the global numbers, but also I'm probably gonna look at the global numbers. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, always things are on the back end. And Theobald had said a good idea for the browser extensions, intuition to create applications that act as additional layers to this trust score and encourage users to participate in all areas, rather to express support or disagreement in order to gain a genuine perspective. Or is needed. Yeah, and Vital said that as far as like the trust score stuff, right? It's all in the query parameters, like you were saying.
Yeah. You know what? While I have you guys, another important question is kind of I'm thinking about what you're talking about. Oh, social app. So it's a good thing. It's compelling. The one tricky thing is I'm noticing I don't know exactly what form I'm going to share my screen again. What form disagreement is going to look like, right? So if I go, 'cause there's three kind of ways that I've thought that disagreement might look like. So let's see here. Okay, so disagreement. So we have the first one is the most obvious, vault versus counter vault. Second one would be negative claims. And then the last one would be omission. So what I mean by this is, okay, Billy is trustworthy. So obviously you can do for or against that. The one thing is right now, most things are for, right? So on something like this, where it's like a person claiming that Billy, how do I say this? Staking against the claim that Billy is trustworthy, that's a fairly inflammatory claim, right? So our curators, especially curators, because curators are going to become well enough known that eventually the person saying that Billy's not trustworthy, Billy's going to find out about that. In fact, he's probably going to know that very quickly, and he's going to ask himself, who is this person? So doing that is very confrontational. So I think you're going to see some resistance to claims that are related to people or that are um, not highly contested ones, right? If I said Craig Wright is Satoshi, you'll get a bunch of people disagreeing and some people agreeing. That's what you expect. It's a contested claim. The other thing is negative claims. Instead of making the claim Billy is trustworthy, someone might just straight up do Billy is a scammer. That's theoretically even more inflammatory, right? So I think you're probably not going to see too many people do that. But what I would expect you to see, and or at least I would be surprised if it's like this, is let's say most founders for crypto projects have trustworthy, um, builder. These are just tags, right? So if you don't see much stake on Billy is trustworthy, like if it's not towards the top, and for most founders, then these usually are the top, then it's almost like the omission. The fact that it isn't there is kind of the signal, if that makes sense. It's a lot more subtle, but it's less confrontational. Like if I go to a founder and his top claims are, oh, he's funny, he's entertaining, and he's very fashionable, that is the red flag, right? Because they're not related to building. So I think that was, that we don't have to go deep into this topic, but that's a topic I've been starting to think about a little bit more, is like, well, what does disagreement even look like? Because we need to make sure that people can express disagreement in some way on things that are important, like the reputation of a crypto founder. We want to make sure they can do that without feeling like there's going to be retaliation.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting to think about. Did you see this message that just dropped into chat from Believe and Kylan
Let's read it
dropped
together.
into? Yeah.
Okay. Do we have multiple? Should we do Luda first or which one?
Yeah, let's go with Luda. So have you ever thought about surfacing a real-time trust rating on X accounts directly in the extension? So similar to what Ethos does, Ethos has these reputation scores for people on X, but instead powered by your trust circle instead of a global score?
So it's still a score. Uh, yeah. Let me rephrase that. So earlier, kind of what I was trying to think or to do was like, okay, your trust weight for a curator multiplied by the weight of their claim. So if they trust Billy and I trust them, then we multiply the weight of the different stakes. So I think that could be the closest thing to a score. Um, but it also, which claim, I assume it'd be hashtag trustworthy. We're talking trust score. I'm not against it. Um, a part of me worries a little bit sometimes when you start leaning heavy into that, then it becomes some sort of, yeah, everyone wants to game it, or like it becomes a little bit, there's a lot of vanity, I guess. And that makes me a little bit concerned. Um, I know that's like Instagram, I think, started limiting I think they didn't show like numbers, how many likes on a post. They started hiding some of that because they felt it just became a big contest, and it was, if it becomes unhealthy for the system, then at that point, um, you can revert it. But yeah, I'd be very open to doing that. I guess my question, Luda, is do you guys find those scores are helpful?
And we'll give Luda a chance to talk here, but I'll kind of fill in from my own point of view. Is like, I think they're helpful sometimes in some ways. So from my own perspective, right? Like when I scroll X, I've used a number of different apps over time, but currently I believe what I'm using is the wall chain. Yeah, the wall chain X score. And so I'll share my screen real quick. That way you can actually see what I see. Um, but if I'm here on X, I see this green score next to people's names. And it's more or less a reputation score based on who is following you. So like I have this score of 130 based on the people who follow me, and that's based on the people who follow them, and there's some back end analytics there as well. And if we look at like intuition has 189, Elon Musk has a score of 1,000, which is the overall top score. If we look at Billy, right, Billy is sitting at 326. So these are things
And
like these
that's
are
just the
signals to
trust.
me. Yeah,
That's
it's
just the
just
trust predicate.
essentially, yeah. I mean, if it were to be built on an intuition, it would be something like it would be somehow ranked on people saying that they trust somebody. And so like the way that this is calculated from wall chain is I don't know all of the specifics, but it's like Billy is followed by a lot of very influential people who are considered trustworthy, thanks due in part to the people who already follow them or the things that they've done in the space. I don't know all of the back end details of how these were calculated, but I can say at this point, right, like as I continue to get more and more followers who are considered trustworthy or big accounts, or reputable accounts, my score here goes up over time. Ethos does
Hey,
something
real quick,
that's similar. Yeah.
real quick. So this is built on intuition or not built on
No.
intuition? You said
No.
blockchain or something? Okay.
Yeah, it's called
What
wall
is
chain.
it is a browser extension or
Yeah, it's a
has to be,
browser
right?
extension.
Yeah.
Right here, wall
Yeah, hey,
chain
listen,
X
I'm
squared.
I'm very open. I'm very open to adding this sort of functionality if people feel like they want it there. Yeah. The one when I think about scores too, um I've been thinking more about scores as like I think I like the idea of having it as a percentile. Because I'll be honest, you tell me 130 was, I have no idea what on earth 130 means. I have no idea what 25 means. Um, like, and then one's 1,000. So is that like how many times better is that? You know what I mean? Than 130? Is it 7 times better? What does that even mean? So yeah, I think percentiles are probably the way to go when you have to do some sort of almost global score. Because then at least you can kind of compare it. Like, oh, I'm in the top whatever percentile. But yeah, I'm open to doing stuff like this. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And Luda
This
had
is why I
followed
want
up.
it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is why I want it. This is why I want this to start getting to people's hands, because then as people use it, they can start giving me more ideas. And that's why I try to do this demo as quickly as I could, because it's just way better to start getting feedback. I can't guarantee that I'll make stuff that users want, right? So I need user feedback to make sure I'm actually heading in the right direction. So yeah,
Sure. And
yeah.
Luda had followed up here saying that he thinks context matters a lot. That a global score feels arbitrary, but if it's a score that's based on and coming from your own trust circle, it feels a lot more personal and relevant. So like it's telling you what the people you already trust think of this account, not just based on an anonymous crowd.
Pretty much, if this you want the score to be so that people can't like screenshot it, essentially, because the second people screenshot, they'll say, look how good my score is," and everyone just wants a high score and nothing more. But when it's different for every user, the score shows different based on who's logged in. Then it's right. It takes away that, which is good. Which is good. It's more personalized. That's just a good thing, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree.
Okay, so
Well,
Believe is saying, he wants to know if Hive Mind can do predictive analysis on claims/identities for easy decision making for users. So, like, if they see a claim, it sounds like if they see a claim, would we tell them, hey, since you have Trust Circle who staked a certain way on a claim, that maybe you should stake that way? I think he's what he's trying to say.
I think that's what I'm getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Yeah, there's a bunch of things you can do. And I think I don't even know if you need much analysis other than, hey, most of your trust circle says they went this way, so you probably see, but I don't know if we want to encourage them to go one way or the other. Because if they disagree with their trust circle, that's a strong signal that we want to know. So the question becomes, will that influence the way that they stake too, right? If you're like, hey, these people stake this way, 'cause you do want people to give their honest opinions as well.
Lots of food for thought.
Yeah. We're going on an hour 40, so we can start wrapping up if you want.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm kind of thinking. I know a lot of our European friends are starting to head offline. I know we missed some of them in hindsight if they watch this. Thank you all for being here. A lot of the couple of the core team members have left as well, but I'm very very appreciative for Kames and Joji coming by. Billy and Vital are still here. Thank you all for your time very very much and your thoughts and opinions. Um, I guess last couple minutes here. Anyone have any last minute thoughts they want to call out, throw out there before we wrap up? And then we'll start coming back to this on a weekly basis, getting everyone together, being able to chat about these things.
Yeah, don't forget hivemindhq.io/curators. That's the best way to get early access. And then also in Discord, I have a Hive Mind server. So that's one place where we're gonna start. This is probably where we're gonna forward people to discuss the latest with the extension. We also have the Explorer, the bot, the Snap. So yeah, if you want to join that server, I'll include it. If you just go to my website and then down here, Discord, you can also go to our X account as well if you want to follow. So thank you. I appreciate it. I think this demo went really well. I'm very happy with how it went. And I think we went over a lot of important topics. So I'm stoked. And Woods, thanks for putting this together. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming out.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. It was awesome. Very cool to see Hive Mind from your perspective and how things are going so far. Hear a bit from you and your thought process around it. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Jolad, awesome time spent here. Thank you very much for coming, for hanging out with us. Everybody else, Luda, Zet, Salo, really appreciate you guys. Believe, thanks for dropping some questions. Would love to build on intuition through Hive Mind if that becomes possible in the future. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if we get this functionality working well for X.com, then that means we will want to add it to a bunch of other places. Like I said, YouTube or I don't know, IMDb or LinkedIn or wherever. We want this to be able to be applied to everywhere, really, right? So, yeah, as long as things keep growing, it's the builder team at Hive Mind will grow. Right now, it's pretty much just me.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, cool. Thank you for your time
Yeah.
again, Kylan.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody here, Vital, Funga, Bill, Jenny. Appreciate y'all. We will see you around. Reach out if you need anything, and we'll see you next Monday.
Yeah,
G-Trust,
guys.
everybody.